Welcome back to Ray's Talk Show. Ray's Talk Show brings you mentors to support your personal development, career growth, and online platform building to help you find wealth in your voice. And that's something, wealth. It's all right there. This is your virtual big brother, Ray Collazo. For those on the blab, thank you so much for joining Ray's Talk Show live. And for those listening to the podcast, we always appreciate our podcast listeners. You got to check us out. One of these days, get on your desktop, get on your phone, download the Blab app, and you got to check out the live version of the show every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific, and as I always say, whatever time they feel like it is in Arizona, at blab.im/race podcast. You can chat and even join the show via video conference. You got to get down with the blab, y'all. This is some wonderful stuff. Thank you again so much for joining us. And when I'm so excited for this episode of Ray's Talk Show. When I learned about our guest and his mission to help others create the life of their dreams with purpose, passion, and profit, I couldn't wait to schedule this episode. Rick Martinez is a veteran registered nurse and successful entrepreneur. He's also the founder and CEO of bizacademyonline.com. The mission of Biz Academy Online is to build the next generation of 10X entrepreneurs. 10X entrepreneurs are business leaders that work less, make more, and live passionately. Now that's what I'm talking about, brother. Rick Martinez, welcome to Ray's Talk Show.
Ray, it's awesome to be here, man. Good to see you now.
I know, and I think we have to. I know we've been off and on Twitter and different conversations over the last 2 years, and it's so great to match the face and match the personality and get to know you and the family. I know your wife Liz has been in communication, so it's so great to get to know the Martinezes, and always great to connect with my folks in San Antonio. It's one of my favorite cities. And maybe later in the show, we'll try to get some tips from Rick's a foodie as well. So maybe he'll get some tips about some of his favorite spots in San Antonio. I've got one or two watering holes I've been known to frequent, some great friends. And if we have time, maybe we'll get into the Spurs, because we always like to talk hoops here. Definitely check out, if you're not familiar with the podcast version of the show, definitely check out Ray's podcast by subscribing to our podcast on iTunes. This will be probably close to the 200th episode of Ray's podcast. So we have a wealth of conversations, mentors like Rick that can help you find wealth in your voice. So definitely subscribe and do some binge listening to it over the Christmas holidays. Rick, you've got an incredible biography, and we want to definitely touch on every part of your journey. But I know this journey didn't start as a highly regarded entrepreneur and an award-winning entrepreneur and someone that's known all over the country for your vision. So Rick Martinez, where actually did this journey begin for you?
You know where it started. So grab my hat right there, my blue one. So where it started, Ray, is funny, but I work out of home and my wife's here. So this is where it started.
Okay, double A.
Yeah, that's why I usually wear my hat, but I'm born in LA. So I was born and raised in East LA, and
that's cool.
Made my way to Texas, but I think my real journey into entrepreneurism, when I realized I was an entrepreneur, and it took me a while to, I guess, accept that, was after I became a nurse, a registered nurse. And but no, I'm born and bred Cali boy, and I've been in Texas for a while. So, but that's where it started. You're in Philly, I'm from the West Coast, and we're kind of meeting in the middle here with San Antonio.
That is fantastic. And why don't we talk about the nurse piece? Because, I have a sister-in-law to nurse. I think 3 of my tias are nurses or have been nurses over the years. And for my money, talk about underappreciated heroes of our country. They're literally on the front lines of taking care of us day to day in our medical system. And I'm not a health expert, but it seems to me that the way healthcare is going, doctors seem to be hiding from us a lot of times because of potential litigation, and nurses are really kind of doing more and more of the work. So talk to me. And being a guy nurse is a different and unique experience. What about that part of your journey focused you on this path of entrepreneurship, Rick?
Those are all awesome things. So I've been a nurse for 20 years, and then being a nurse, a male nurse, was actually another whole dynamic to get used to. And I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining one bit. So, but it's funny, Ray. But I started as a nurse, and again, I graduated from nursing school in 1995. So like almost exactly 20 years. And I was just doing contract work. Well, actually, I was a staff nurse for a while, and just shout out to all the nurses out there. It doesn't matter LVN, RN, whatever you do. It's an awesome job, and I think we deserve more praise. So shout out to all the nurses out there. But here's the thing, Ray, is that, again, this is 20 years ago, but I got out of nursing school with my bachelor's degree and I made $12 an hour. And to hear that today, when I think about it, I'm like $12 an hour. Now, granted, it was 20 years ago, but still, to be somebody who does the jobs that we do, it was a tough pill to swallow. And here's why, Ray, is because I had dreams and goals and ambitions, and becoming a nurse was one of them. There's no doubt. And it took me about a year of being a staff nurse when I realized that I just wanted more. And honestly, I wanted more for myself. I wanted to make more. I wanted to do more and be more. And I had a young family then, and I was married. So it was not just for me, it was for them. And honestly, for doing something for the bigger purpose. And so I started doing contract work about a year into being a nurse. And basically, there's still a shortage in nursing. So, and even back then, there's been a shortage for a long time. So I was a temporary nurse, and I would get paid. I almost doubled my money. So doing contract work, and that was the seed that planted, unbeknownst to me, that started to kind of bloom into my venture into starting my own business years later and entrepreneurism. I didn't know it. It just started by doing something that was driving me, somewhere in here. And it's kind of cool because when we chase those things, it often leads us onto the path that we should be on,
Absolutely. And, one of these, what's so great about bringing on mentors and what I call Rays of Light on Ray's podcast, Ray's now talk show on Blab, is that I do all this prep and I have all these questions. Then after the first question, our mentor and our special guest throw out the path for the entire conversation. I mean, there's so much there, Rick. I mean, there's literally a book in your answer because, that's why I started this show. I started this show because there's so many people, particularly in our community, particularly from our generation, that just want to do more. They know they have a lot more to give. They want to help people in a more profound way than maybe the job description in an HR drawer somewhere guides them to. And they feel like caged birds. And I've felt like that over the years. And so, but many people, I would suggest most of us on some level feel that way, Rick, but few of us make that breakthrough and that leap into actually doing something about it. So what was the key for you to make that leap into not just wanting more, but going for it?
So Ray, that's a great question. And I think, I know that we all have a story, right? We all have a history, a past and things that shaped us, or maybe things that weigh us down. And my story is no different, but I don't have like a sob story. I don't have a story where I had a broken childhood, nothing like that. I mean, I was born in East Los Angeles, and my family, we Hispanic, so lived very close together. And I grew up pretty happy kid. And my dad was a Vietnam vet, and there was a part of my life where my ex-wife and I were both students, and we were on food stamps. And that's about as sob story as mine gets. But here's the thing. And this is a choice I think we can all make. We should all be making, because you mentioned caged birds. And here's the choice that sets you free. We decide this. We decide that story will define me, or that story will fuel me. And I decided, when something I feel like I knew back then is like, all right, so I'm on food stamps, and it's not a good place to be. I just, there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm like, it was hard. I mean, I was married with a little kid, and I was a part-time waiter and in nursing school. And I just knew something inside said, all right, Rick, you suck it up, you do what you got to do, but you will not be defined by this. You will move forward, and you will be something more. And so, to use your caged bird analogy, which is awesome, it's like the door. Here's the thing, is that we may feel like caged birds, but here's what I got to tell anybody who's listening, is the door's open. You know what I mean? The door's open. It's up to you to fly through it, and we can absolutely do it. And that's all it was. I don't want to make it seem easy, Ray, but the fact is, that ray of light is that it is easy. We decide, and you decide that you want something more, whether it's a better job or a better income or to take that leap. And, we might screw up and we might fall and we might get hurt, but man, at least you take the leap. So
that's right.
Yeah, it was just Ray, it was honestly, it was just a choice, a decision I made. And I never looked back.
Yeah, it's interesting because I can relate to your story, Rick, because part of my why was that I don't have the sob story. So, everyone has challenges in their life. My parents got divorced when I was a teenager, and that was a rough patch. And, we all have our ups and downs. But in general, in my community, I grew up in North Philly. I always consider myself like one of the lucky ones. My parents were both like city employees. And back then it was like, wow, man, you got health insurance. You got your parents have vacation days. We were very fortunate, me and my brothers. And I to have gotten the educational opportunities that I was able to get and just the stability and family. I look back on it and that drove me because I felt, I didn't get access to college and access to some of these career opportunities for like just myself. It is for a bigger purpose. And that's been a blessing and a curse too, right? Because it's your drive, but then also you go through a lot of emotional ups and downs with that. So I've definitely had to deal in my own life with guilt. And I know that sounds funny, but it's like, am I doing enough? Am I, truly, emptying out my gas tank? And so, but the beauty of that is that it is for a higher purpose. And when you're grounded in that, and that's why I wanted you to have this conversation with us, Rick. And in the second segment of the show, we're going to get into more of the Biz Academy Online, because there's definitely a strong sense from your brand that it's not just business to make some money. It's business for a higher purpose. Rick, I'm curious what your military background taught you. We're such big supporters of veterans and people in the military. Very proud to say both my grandfathers served in this country. One of my grandfathers was in World War II, and I want to make a movie about their lives one day. The other one was in Korea. He's, God willing, he's still with us. And, it's been a big part of that pride, and that work ethic has, I hope, on some level has impact, rubbed off on me. And so I'm curious, what your military history, how did that fit into this entrepreneurial journey for you?
That's awesome. And here's how. So first of all, so like I shared with you, is I didn't have like this strained upbringing. So I had options. I had options available, and I actually started college right after high school because that's what I was supposed to do, and didn't do too bad until the day I flunked out. So, it was all great. It was all fun and games until I flunked out of college. And parents said, all right, you need to decide. You're of age, you're of legal age, and you blew your shot. So, that's what it was. And they weren't being mean. They were just being real. It's like, yeah, we're not funding your fun anymore. And so on my own, I went down to a recruiting station, Ray, and I just joined the Army. And just like that. And I went home and I told my parents, and I said, I made a decision. And they're like, well, okay, what'd you do? And I don't remember the exact conversation, but they had no clue that I had signed the papers and joined the military. And I told them, and that was in a sense, I look back and I'm like, all right, I had options. I could have gotten a job somewhere, and or maybe tried like a JUCO, junior college, or something like that. But I thought, I think I needed something. And here's where the military fit into helping me become the person I am today. It's what I realized I was lacking, Ray, was just that little extra discipline. And guess what? You get a lot of in the military. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. You get a ton of discipline, whether you like it or not. And so I learned a lot about myself. Some small things, like to this day, I still roll my socks the same way, and my t-shirts get folded the same way. But what really was the bigger thing that was instilled in me was discipline and focus. And then that you're not alone. To your left and to your right are, your fellow soldiers, and there's people behind you coming up the ranks, and there's people in front of you. So that was this 360-degree view of what could be. So I think the biggest things for me was discipline and the fact that there's the potential to have an awesome team of people with this singular focus and mission. And those two things, they've stuck with me in business. And, we're going to talk later, I know, but even the business I have now, I have no employees, but I still rely on those two things.
Absolutely. And it's so great to hear about how every part of our journey, our successes, our failures, our different career experiences prepare us for the next steps, right? And teamwork, I'm sure, has been a big factor in kind of sticking that principle in your personal life, right? Because we're always, it's a teamwork in business, it's a teamwork getting, taking care of family and everything else. And again, we're so blessed to be talking to Rick Martinez, entrepreneur, author, veteran, nurse, life force, good family guy, got a great family, and I really have enjoyed getting to know the Martinezes the last few days as we've been preparing for the show. And hopefully we'll get your wonderful wife on toward the end of the show so we can hear from the brain behind the operation.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking to Rick Martinez about his incredible journey. And before we hear a little bit more about Biz Academy Online and some of the principles that people that participate in the Biz Academy Online community can learn from, I want to again let people know that they're watching Ray's talk show on blab.im, and you can also listen to us as a podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere you can check out a podcast. And of course, you can check out all of our episodes at rayspodcast.com. And our brand will be rolling out early next year at bigbrotherray.com. And check out, if you go to our website today, you can, and any day, you can check out a lot of free resources like our guide to living a truly grateful life. That's a really important conversation, Rick. I'm sure you have some thoughts about really, we often say during the holidays, oh, I'm so grateful. How do we truly live grateful? So we have some thoughts and some advice on that. And recently published a blog about what Ray learned from the potential millionaire. I just interviewed Felix Montelada. Rick, you definitely got to connect with this guy, one of the great financial gurus in our space, and the man behind the Potential Millionaire brand. So he's teaching me a lot about business, finance, everything else. Rick, let people know where they can, before we get into the next segment, where we're going to take a deep dive into Biz Academy Online project, let people know where they can find you on social media and where they can find you in general.
The best way is one of the easiest ways is through Twitter. So I'm one of those Twitter guys. I'm active on it, and the call sign is the @ sign, and then purpose hack. So like the word purpose hack, all one word. And then another easy way is just go to this is a little self-gratifying, but the website, therickmartinez.com. And I reply to all the emails there. So
that is fantastic. Bro, this is social media. We're here to get to know each other.
Hey.
So that's why I asked you, because I want to make sure everyone listening gets to check it out. Rick, before we get into some of your principles with Biz Academy Online, I did want to ask you, so you had all these life experiences, the military, the medical field, the challenge of taking care of your family and the different steps you took in achieving that. But ultimately, what was the final piece that brought you fully into entrepreneurship and specifically Biz Academy Online?
Man, that's been such a journey. I would have to say that, you know what it was, Ray? Honestly, I had an accident a few years ago, and it was a singular moment.
Wow.
Where I just realized that things had to be different. And so, yeah, it was. I can actually pinpoint it to that day. And that was the day that a lot of things changed for me. Now, granted, it was only like in the last 3 years, and I'm 48. I know I look like 38, but I'm 48.
Oh,
and,
you're humble too, Rick. You do look great.
So sometimes we'll do like podcasts and you never get to see each other. It's all just like you're talking. So this is cool that we get to see each other. So hey, let's play it up, Big Brother Ray, right? So
absolutely. Well, I always got to bring the eye candy on. That's why your wife's coming on later, right?
In a minute, I'm going to show you my top secret move when I turn the computer and you actually just see her right there.
That's cool. No, look forward to having her join shortly. It's great.
No, but Ray, it was a moment, and it was a moment that it put my life on a whole different path, and it's just one of the coolest things. It was a bad moment, but it was one of the coolest things that ever happened, and it changed a lot, and for the positive.
Wow. And what about that moment? Well, I guess what was the first step you took with Biz Academy Online? I'm curious.
So I think the first step I took was it was simply just deciding that this is what I wanted to do. So I had been doing like international business coaching. And I say that because I actually got to fly overseas and lead an 8-hour seminar and then to Mexico City. So I've been doing that. And I think it was on a longer trip. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't a bad gig, but I couldn't take my wife. And our youngest child is about to graduate from high school, and so we're kind of at this stage where we want to do more together. And so this Academy Online was a way for us to take a lot of that knowledge and experience and background and what I was already doing and put it into an online course. And that was really the catalyst behind that, is to be able to work in my underwear. Honestly, like right now, you have no idea if I'm wearing pants. And so that's the beauty of what we're doing now, is I can do it from my home office right here, right now at 9 p.m., 9:20, Central Time. And this is, for me, Ray, this is what it's about,
Yeah, no, and it's so interesting because oftentimes when we think about like lifestyle business and working from home, we think about women, but men want to spend time with their families too. They want to, the commuting, there's just the daily grind. I mean, in the last like 5 business days between me and my wife, both my kids I have 2 little guys, 4 and 6, and one day one's sick, one day the other's sick, one day they're both sick, and we were talking about it today that if we didn't have the kind of career flexibility that we're lucky to have, frankly, and a lot of Americans don't have, and certainly most people around the world don't have, we would have been in trouble, because it just, the juggling was just really tough, and half a day here, half a day there, and so this is the being able to have a business that not only you can be proud of and take care of your family, but have that kind of flexibility is priceless. Rick, I want to give our Race Talk Show family a flavor of the type of resources that you're providing with Biz Academy Online. The first thing I wanted you to share with us was help us define the 10X entrepreneur for people that are new to your community. What does that signify, being a part of the 10X entrepreneur community that you have?
Thanks for asking. So I don't want to say that I came up with that term, because I belong to several different entrepreneurial groups like Mastermind, things like that. And there's one in particular that I really enjoy, because we focus on 10Xing, becoming the 10X person or entrepreneur. And here's what it means. And here's the way I like to use it. It's that, on building our businesses, our companies, being an entrepreneur, that's just, if we think of life like as a circle, that's just one slice. And there's also, our communities and our commitment to our spirituality and to our families. And we have these slices that make up the whole pie. And that's what it's about. It's 10Xing every aspect of it. And sometimes it's going to be out of balance. But when I talk about 10Xing, becoming the 10X entrepreneur, what I'm really referring to is, if your only focus is on your business, then there's some programs out there that are perfect for you. But if your focus is on being a badass mofo in every aspect of life, then I'm the guy for you, because, if your business is great, but your home life sucks, you got bigger issues. If your home life is great, but maybe your business sucks, you have other issues. And it's not just about teaching somebody strategy or execution or how to hire better or how to manage cash flows, but it's really about being a better, in my opinion, being a better overall human being. And so 10X every aspect of life, whatever that circle is comprised of, because some folks aren't married. They just maybe have a significant other. Some folks, so that's what it's about, Ray. It's about being awesome in every aspect of life. And because I'm an entrepreneur and I've been doing it for a while, that's also a big focus for me, is being better at business.
I want to talk to you about that the buzzword that haunts all of us, right? On some level, balance in our lives, and definitely want to dive into that a little bit with you. I wanted to shout out a few people. Stefan Moses and Jerry Quinones have joined on the Blab watching us. Jerry is a young man that I've started to mentor on here, Rick. So hopefully in a few minutes, Jerry and Stefan, we're going to open up the seats. So I definitely want you to be able to tap into Rick's expertise, and particularly you, Jerry. This is a young man, Rick, that I found here on Blab, and I've been able to coach him a little bit. He's from your old part of the world. He's from Southern California. I think he's an Inland Empire guy. but you're general part of Southern California, and he's a aspiring screenwriter. He's already written an incredible screenplay. So I'm hoping he can come on with us again, Jerry, in a few minutes, so you can get some coaching right here on the spot from Rick, and definitely want to see how we can be supportive of this young man, because this kid's got a lot going for himself, and a real sharp guy. And you, Stefan, seems like you know Rick, and definitely would love to have you and Lisa, of course, join us in a few seconds. Rick, I did want to talk to you about that word that a lot of us struggle with. I know I do, the balance piece. And, you have some provocative thoughts on this topic. So, Rick, what is your truth concerning this phrase, work-life balance?
That is like a buzzword, and it's being talked about, there's books and there's TV shows, and everybody's trying to figure it out. And everybody has their opinion. Some people controversial, and I just call BS on that, Ray. I just think that there's no in the true spirit of being an entrepreneur, it's hard to just turn it off and on. It's not like a switch or an iPhone app, because no matter how hard we try, sometimes I can't sleep at night because I'm thinking about my business. And sometimes I just want to be with my family, my wife, and I don't care about my business. And it's not a switch. It's kind of this ebb and flow of trying to find, what works, but I don't think it's about necessarily finding that balance, because just when we think we find it, like the moment I told you about, 225 pounds crashes down on your leg. And those are things that life just throws at you, and you just don't know. So I would say that there are so many more important things to put energy into, as opposed to finding that balance. Just go out and love your family. You know what I mean? Go out to a movie, stay up till 2 a.m. and work on your business, whatever that is. And screw finding the balance. It's just we have better ways to spend energy. I know some people are going to find that contrarian or think, oh, Rick doesn't know, but that's what I say. And, and that's the beauty of all of our opinions, is on some level, it all kind of matters. And I choose not to spend a tremendous amount of time on finding that magical balance or the seesaw, because I don't know that it really exists. It's kind of like this, it's like the entrepreneurial unicorn, and I don't know if it's there, but I just got to tell you, Zeph, the guy that's on, I just sent him a shout. Zeph is, when we talked earlier about people all around the circle. So Zeph is, I just know Zeph, and I don't want to call him out or embarrass him, but this dude's like in his early 20s, and he just published a book. And so I've become friends with him. And he's on your neck of the woods, right? He lives out in the DC area. So
okay, I'm in DC all the time. We should definitely connect. Absolutely.
Cool.
We actually, again, people that are checking us out on Blab, we're going to invite people to join one of the seats here just in a few moments. And it's interesting with the work-life balance piece, Rick. I'll share with you. So, I have a day job, and I've been doing this for a couple of years, and I've got 2 small kids. So, little boys especially. This is like the one group of children actually want to hang out with their daddy a lot, So I know in a few years they won't want anything to do with me, but so look, it's a challenge, and my wife and I, and but you have to make choices, right? So I choose to do the show 10 p.m. Eastern, so it's not the ideal time for the East Coast people to watch, probably, but the bottom line is that it is about prioritizing. So they're asleep, and we figure out a way to make it work. But you know what? It's also a blessing, right? Because once you prioritize and you move forward, then it makes me more creative about, wanting to make sure we get people from different parts of the country. It's a little easier for them, right? It's 9 o'clock for you, so it's a little easier, and even easier for people on the West Coast. So it's made the show better, because it's forced me to mix it up even more than, if it was a prime time on East Coast, I probably would just stick more with local friends. But definitely, it's interesting. You talk in your commentary about, kind of making things work. And one of the things that's really interesting about your training, Rick, is that you talk a lot about the principles of business that you're not going to find out by getting an MBA, an MBA school. And so why don't you just, I know you have entire presentations about it, but why don't you just give us one lesson that folks are probably learning and don't even realize it in their daily life, and kind of things you can't learn in the classroom?
So I'm gonna coin this from a friend of mine. He's a South African business guy, and I met him, of all crazy story, but we became friends on a tequila tour in the Oaxaca region of Mexico. So
Nice.
I was there with a group of entrepreneurs, and we have just a confluence of events. And one of the things he shared with me was probably one of the coolest lines I've ever heard, because a lot of times, in business, and Ray, I'm just going to share, I had a large company. So we looked for quality people, and we had offices all over the country, and we looked for MBAs, and we looked for all those things. And, it just always seemed to me that the ones who were the best, the undiscovered ones, were the ones who had a BFA. And so my friend, I'm going to tell you what BFA is in a second. And before I say it, let me know if this is a censored show or we can talk freely. But my friend,
that's why it's called editing.
There you go. So
on the Blab, it's all good, bro. Don't worry about it.
Cool. My friend, his name is Rich Mulholland, and South African dude. He used to tour with Iron Maiden back in the day, and he started his businesses. Really cool. You would never think this guy is a rock star business guy, entrepreneur. But he said we were on this going to our next tequila stop. Just think of Napa Valley, but full of cactuses and a bunch of, since I'm Mexican, I'll say it, a bunch of Mexicans like me. So, and he goes, Rick, we all hire for this. We're talking business. And he goes, but I don't look for MBAs anymore. He goes, I look for BFAs. And of course, there was a pause and say, all right, Rich, what the hell's a BFA? And he goes, and MBAs are a dime a dozen. They go to school and they come out smart and they want $80,000, $90,000 a year. But a BFA, he goes, I tell people, are you a BFA? Do you have that kind of degree? And they say, what's that? He goes, be fucking awesome. He goes, I just want to hire people that have a BFA that want to be fucking awesome, because when you do that, when you hire that person, they usually are the best. And sometimes you lose them, but that's okay, because for that period of time, you got the best FAs out there. So if I was to give somebody a nugget of advice, I would say this. And my parents are not going to like this. My kids are in college, but I'm like, there's more to having a BFA than there is to having an MBA, because the entrepreneurial playing field is so even keeled now. The hustlers are going to win, and the ones with BFA are going to win. And I want to say that, we started the show off sharing how I've been a nurse for 20 years. I've been a nurse for 20 years. And you know what, Ray? Just like you, we're hustlers, and we get on and we talk at 10 p.m. and we're hustling and we're doing it. And so BFA is the name of the game. So if somebody says, Rick, what's your biggest piece of advice? I'm like, all the MBAs that come out of school and they're going to look for jobs and you probably need them. It's like, yeah, don't waste your time. Get yourself a BFA. You know what they look like. You know what they sound like. You know what they're like. You know what I mean? Get them on your team and win.
That's right. And it's interesting because especially with social media, we find each other. We find each other. I know you and I have over the last year or two have debated various topics around leadership and real healthy stuff. So it's the like-minded people, the hustlers, know who each other are. And one of the things that going back to our earlier conversation about it's all out there for you. I tell people that if most of us are on the shoreline of life, but the good part about that is that the ocean's right there. It's called Google. You just gotta get in the boat and type in a search, because there's not much you can't learn by just looking for it, whether it's an online resource or connected with like-minded people, social media. Anyone who wants to jump on, if Liz or anyone else would like to jump on, we definitely want to involve our friends here that are part of this conversation, Seth and John and other people. So feel free to jump on as people jump into the seats. Don't be shy. We'd love to interact. We have we have up to 2 more people that can be part of this. Want to let people know that I want to thank them again for watching Ray's talk show here on Blab. Really appreciate everyone on the Blab here. So, checking us out. And again, we're on here on Blab every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Rick, I'm going to have on Thursday evening, Ariane Datil. She does a local lifestyle television show in Philadelphia. And she's really trying to build her fashion brand, her fashion expertise through broadcast. So people trying to want to learn more. I know a lot of people in the Blab community are looking to see how they can build their brand, build their reach through video. Definitely, that's going to be the purpose of our conversation on Thursday. So definitely check us out every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern here on Blab. And again, as people, now everyone's shy. Sev, John, anyone, Liz, feel free to jump into the seats. We'd love to engage more people in this conversation. Rick, as people are jumping on, let people know where they can again find Biz Academy online and your online community.
Yeah, you know, like I said, the easiest way to remember it's therickmartinez.com. And you know, I literally built that site like in one night in when my wife and I were on a retreat in Canada. And then on Twitter, it's Purpose Hack. It's ampersand Purpose Hack, and I'm pretty responsive on Twitter and the website that we have up. So. And I just want to say hi. I know John Birch. I've known him from my days in the CrossFit world. So for years, for quite a while. So that's very cool. And then I just got to say, you know, hello. So
Absolutely. Shout out. Hey, we're all about shout outs here, dog. Don't worry about it. No, for
yeah.
sure.
And then my son Slayton's on also. And so I see he's the 18-year-old that he's the final piece of the empty nest that my wife and I are about to experience. So
wow. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. No, that's the you're on the journey that that I'm just begun. I have two little boys, 6 and 4, and I actually took my 6-year-old to Top Wrestling today. He's a real athletic kid, and he likes the sports stuff. And my 4-year-old is he's like his dad. He's we may not have an athletic ability. He's gonna make up in charm and personality. So he's but they're great, and you know, they're gonna keep me young, brother. What can I say? I'm really lucky to have them. And again, people are Seth. Let's see, Seth and Moses has a comment here. Watch. Oh, okay, he's watching from bed, but he has a question. Rick, in terms of the new year, how can we best prepare ourselves in setting goals for 2016?
You know, so Zeph, that's a great question, and so I know Zeph, and here's what I would say is if you're just now preparing your goals, you may be behind the 8 ball, but it's not too late. You know what I mean? So when I think of goals, I usually consider it from a business perspective, and we usually plan 90 days in advance. But so that would mean like maybe last month or so, October-ish. But here's what I would say. It's and I'm going to say this to Zeph, is book yourself a trip, go somewhere for a couple days, turn things off, and just see what emerges. That seems kind of woo-woo, but you know, if a person is at this stage of 2015 and they haven't quite set the goals yet, then turn everything off, give yourself that privilege and permission. And if you prefer, get you some Corona or some O'Doul's, whatever it is, and do nothing except just think about what the next year looks and feels like. And to the extent that, think about 2016, December 31st, and what have you accomplished? I mean, get in that moment for just a few seconds. You have a new job, you've made more money, you've married the girl or guy of your dreams, whatever that is. And when you come to, you should have a notebook and pencil with you, write those things down. And now that you've envisioned what your goals are, and of course they got to be real, you know, I mean, we're not going to go discover a pot of gold, but like real things, then reverse engineer it. And we don't need to get too deep, but if I was to say, what would I do at this point? I would do that. I would shut things down for a couple days, go to my happy spot, you know, wherever that is. And I would just think about that, what my end of year 2016 looks like. You know, let's just say for people who want more tactics, three things, something personal, something professional, and something that's kind of like maybe a little crazy, and write them down. And then when you come back to your house or come back to the world, backwards plan and attack it.
You know, it's so interesting, Rick, and I really appreciate Zeph sort of putting in this, guiding us in this direction, because that's a lot of people's minds, 2016 planning. I'm someone that it's not only dreading it, but I really want to do the best I can to make the best planning for the year that I can, because I really think it's a very important year for the growth of this project and for me. You know, so let's say we go through that process, Rick, and and I think you're absolutely right, especially when, you know, there is some downtime here, usually during the holidays. It's a great time to get away for a day or two and sort of get your mind focused on this. A lot of people on some level do this, right, Rick? So they come up with, you know, sort of smart plans. You know, they're ambitious, but they're realistic, and they're something that fits in with your life mission. But then they don't have the engine to kind of fuel you to move forward, whether it's the organizational skills or lack of support. So for those out there that feel like alone, like, okay, I'm gonna have this plan, but how am I gonna do it by myself? How am I gonna not repeat the New Year's resolution dilemma? What would you suggest to people?
That's another great question, Ray. And make no mistake that there are times that I feel absolutely alone, and where I feel like there's nobody who understands me, and wow. And here's the thing: it's we all have resources available. And let me give you a really simple example. Is again, if we're planning or we think we're alone, or where do we go? So I used to have on my LinkedIn profile that, here's my entrepreneurial journey. And it actually started with sheep. And if you want to hear about that story, you're going to have to buy me a beer. And I put it out there, and
I'll do a tequila shot with you.
But I just wanted to see, right, who's got the cojones to do it. If somebody wants to grow, reach out, do something. And so one guy, I don't know him, sent me a LinkedIn message and said, hey, I want to buy you a beer and hear your story. And so I'm like, all right. So we met at a Flying Saucer here in San Antonio, and we had a beer, and I'd never met him. He's a cool guy. We're friends to this day. This was years ago. He was looking to start a business. He was just getting out of the Navy, and he was reaching out to people who seemed similar, like through social profiles. And again, social media is free. So there's no excuse of I can't afford it. Social media is pretty much free. If you don't have access to the internet, there's a library, which is free. And so there's never an excuse to not make that first step. So his name is Roman, and Roman and I became friends. And this was a couple of years ago. So as of this week, I believe this span of time, he's opening his very first restaurant here, just outside of San Antonio.
That's awesome.
And I'm not saying because of me. Don't get me wrong, because you said how would somebody take that first step or begin planning? And sometimes it's just as simple as a tweet or just reaching out to somebody. Because I think you agree, Ray, that for the most part we give a damn. We want to give back, and we're grateful, and we're blessed to be where we're at. And so this is a way of us, it's as small or as big it could be, which is our time. It's giving back. And so Roman is a friend to this day, and he's opening up his restaurant, and just huya to Roman, because it started with just that.
That is great, and great to bring a friend to the show. Johnny Birch, thank you for joining Ray's Talk Show.
Hey, thank you for the invitation. I figured I'd jump in, fill a seat for a few minutes, and introduce myself, say hi to you guys. Great show so far. I've learned so much, and I'm in that place that you were just talking about, Rick, where you're alone, and you're just looking around like, okay, I'm either completely off base here, or I'm on the cutting edge, and I'm not sure which it is. So it's I've got 23 years in the Army, and I'm at that point where, early on when I became an NCO, you start learning some of the leadership techniques and tactics, but then you're out training, and you kind of look around, and nobody's really following you, and you go, all right, something's got to change. I have to adapt and overcome this situation and connect with these people. So that's where I'm at in my business. I just transitioned from, I'm getting ready to retire this next year. I'm in the reserves now, and motivational speaking business to a full-time gig. And it is just, it's just one of those things where it seems like the entire universe is like, no, this is really, everything's pushing back. And I'm just like, okay, so I'm trying to stay in the zen, trying to stay in the moment of just like, focus on the goal, focus on where you want to be, focus on the end of 2016, where you're going to be. And, but as I look around and try to, just perceive like the reality of where I'm at, I'm like, oh, it's a ghost town over here. This is not good. So, any advice? Any thoughts on that?
Let me, Rick, before Rick, Uncle Rick will take care of you, brother. But I'm going to say this: two things. One is, first of all, thank you for your service, brother. I mean, I don't know if you were on earlier, but I have two grandfathers that were one served in World War II in the Philippines, the other in Korea, and they are, I live every day to put, move forward and honor their legacy. I got several cousins that are in different branches of the military. So just so much respect for you and Rick and all what you guys have done for us. And I always try to hire veterans, brother. That's a big part of what I try to do in my career. So John, when you say you sense people are pushing back on you, I want to get an example of where's that sense coming from. Then I want Rick to share.
He's biting at the bit over there. I love it.
I know. But John, where do you get this sense?
It's really my perception. It's the matter of getting out there and getting known. I know that's the battle. In fact, one of my mentors, a motivational speaker, Eric Bostic, is based on Austin now. He was in San Antonio, but he's just like, you're the best kept secret. He's like, you just don't. Nobody knows who you are, what you can do, except for the military clients I've had, the few Fortune 500 companies that I've spoken to in the Scottsdale area. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of like, who the hell is this John Birch guy? So that's what I mean by like that pushback is just kind of like, I just feel like I'm in a ghost town at this point where it's like, I don't know where my tribe is at. And that's what I'm trying to gather is figuring out. I'm a personality-based coach. So it's a little bit unique in the sense of I'll go into a business, I'll go to a church. It doesn't matter where, just dealing with people in general. And like Zeph's question earlier is like, well, what am I going to do in 2016? Is like, those are one of the things that I help people figure out through their personality drive. What is it they want to have better, whether it's a relationship, it's a career, those type of things. So I can go in and talk to a sales force. I go in and talk to the military community, especially in the medical military community, to get them to understand who they are. How do we prevent suicides, those type of things. And I want to take that skill set and put it into the civilian sector. And it's just probably one of the greatest challenges I've faced so far.
Interesting. If you summarize, John, like what it is you do, who do you help and what pain do you help solve? Because you mentioned, sales forces, you mentioned military, the medical and motivation and, and then the whole thing of nobody knows who we are. Nobody knows who we are until the day they do. Right.
Right.
But like and then you also mentioned like, you don't know where your tribe is. So I would just be curious, like, who would you define as your tribe? Like you help who, like fill in the blank.
Sure. My elevator pitches, I remind people of their greatness. And that kind of gets people to go, well, what do you mean? And the three areas that I focus on is relationships, overall leadership and parenting, from the personality aspect. So I have a few different programs that I do that with, and that's really something that I've tried to define in this past few days is really to narrow down what is that niche or, that person that I really help. To me, it's anyone who's struggling with knowing themselves.
Gotcha.
That's how I've kind of come to the conclusion.
Rick, let me ask
it's shotgun blast.
Yeah, let me ask Rick a question, and I'll give you, John. Let me tell you, this is as much or more for me because I struggle with this piece. Part of the people that are coming at this with the kind of heart that you and I do is we want to help everybody, but the reality is that there's all kind of people that would tap into your message and enjoy it, but ultimately they're not going to be your core customer base, for lack of a better term. So Rick, talk to me, because when I hear John, I hear a guy that wants to help everybody. He has all the right intentions, but I would suggest to you, John, that you definitely do have to narrow that down a little bit. Rick, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so here's what happened about 6 weeks ago. I went to a friend's house. And my wife and I went to a friend's house. She sells a skincare product, and there was a lot of people there. And then one of the upper, like a C-suite person from that company came, and there was a few people there. We ended up chatting. And so somebody asked, maybe 10 of us, not a lot of us, 10 people. One person asked, so who is our audience? And one of the fellas, who is, they're friends, but one of the fellas said, anybody with skin. And it was kind of deflating. You know what I mean? I mean, it's true, but it's like anybody with skin. I'm like, oh man, that really doesn't help me. I mean, sure, I get it. Anybody with skin needs lotion. Anybody who needs to find their inner greatness it's a pretty wide pool. But and then I thought about like, okay, so what would, if I was selling this skincare product, would I look to anybody with skin? And I would probably be very annoying because, not everybody with skin necessarily wants to talk to a 5'6" Hispanic guy. So I think it starts with truly hyper identifying who that person is, like to the extent that, like if it's a man or a woman, so I'll just give you an example. So the avatar or the ideal person that I like to speak to, she's a 40-year-old registered nurse. She's got kids. She works 12-hour shifts, usually daytime. She gets off work and she has to make dinner because her husband also has a job. They live paycheck to paycheck. They want to make not just a little, they want to make extra money because she wants that new Escalade. She wants the Escalade because it looks good. She's always wanted it. And her kids are going to be a little safer. And her side business, she does 9 to 5, but her 5 to 9, it's not the way she envisions because she's got to make dinner, put the kids to bed, and she just wants to do like an extra 2 to 5K a month. And I even go to the extent that, she's about 5'5". She has brown hair. Her name is Mary Jane. And so when I think of that, then I actually have a person whose mind and shoes I can get in. And again, I say that like I don't mean like in a bad way, you know what I mean? But I can get into her world. And then all of a sudden the talk or what I say to her, it's to her, And sure, I just described the avatar for Biz Academy Online, the ideal client that I love working with. Does it work for 23-year veterans in the service who are looking to get out and want to run and scale a business? Absolutely. And does it work for a podcaster in Philadelphia? Sure, absolutely. These are business tactics that would work. But what it really boils down to, it's who do I want to work with? Who do I want to deliver the message to? And it's really, again, it came down to hyper identifying who that person is and really just fine tuning that message.
How did you do that? How did you get to that clarity?
Honestly, a lot of trial and error. Okay. One of the things I had shared, I don't know if you were on, but I shared with Big Brother Ray was that for the last 2 years, I've been doing business coaching. I'm a member of an entrepreneurial group called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and I also am one of their trainers. So I get sent to different chapters and spend 8-hour seminars. And I realized that I loved that training. I loved, talking about business, and maybe it's because I'm where I am in life. But the thing is that I didn't love. I knew I wasn't talking to the person I wanted to talk to. We resonated, we got along, we're homies, we're all entrepreneurs, but I'm like, there was just something missing. And so it was kind of, then I just had coffee talks like my friend Roman, we met up for a beer and great conversation. And I thought that's still not quite the person. It's just something I didn't quite feel. And then I would meet with the female entrepreneur or the nurse, maybe because I'm a nurse, but I realized that this is it. They have the same pain. They want to grow a business. They want to do more with their life and serve a greater purpose. But I realized that it was that type of person. And that's where I think, John, that's where I really started. And that's not to say that's where I'm going to end. This is just the beginning for me, because we just launched this course like 3 weeks ago, literally.
Nice. Okay.
That's right. John, what taking Rick's feedback there, can you think about as you've sort of started working your brand and connecting with potential members of your tribe and community and clients, is there a particular subset that you feel like that's kind of been a sweet spot that maybe you could kind of explore some more now that you've heard Rick's thoughts about it?
Yeah, I really, and that was, in fact, I was journaling this morning, just getting, kind of picking one of these topics that I focus on. And I keep going back to like the variable between relationships and leadership. And to me, all leadership is building relationships. So it kind of settles back to that point of relationships. How do I improve relationships? And that's been kind of the sweet spot, but the painful spot in my life is, helping or learning the skill sets to understand what it takes to have an effective, productive, and positive relationship in your life. So, and actually one of my programs is called Engineering Better Relationships, where I took the Golden Gate Bridge and I do a comparative to building a bridge between two people or a community. And I just tell the history and use the components and relate those to components of the relationship building between two people. So you have the piers of commonality, the towers of love, the deck of communication, the cables of trust, so on and so forth. So those are the finite components of actually building, the bridge. And I shared this with one of my mentors. He says, I want a shitty first draft by next Friday. And I was like, yeah, but that was just kind of like a coffee talk, man. That's what he goes, no, the passion in you that, so that's where it's come back to, is that relationship piece. and then, you know, coupling in the experience with the personality, drives with that. And that's where I feel the most passion for. And I feel the most, you know, that's where I'm like, if I was coaching somebody and they would talk to me this way, I'd be like, that's it. That's where you got to go. But then how do I define that in the clarity that Rick just displayed? You know?
Well, so John, and I know Rick, I am so curious about this because that is the last thing I thought was going to hurt out of your mouth, brother. So let me tell you, I'm serious because look, I'm on first impression, right? So when I see John Birch come on here, I see a guy. Now you talk about the military background, you got the whole look, right? I'm thinking a guy that's going to come into a corporate boardroom, put his hand down, and you know, get people in, like, you know, hardcore, inspirational, disciplined leadership. Yeah. And now it's wonderful that you're coming. No, but it's wonderful that you have this other direction that would have surprised me again from just an initial profile. Sure. But I think that may be part of what you're, I don't want to say you're struggling with, but branding yourself so that people understand where you're coming from and where you bring to that. Because I could see someone saying, "What's this tough guy know about relationships?" You know, so I'm just. Ultimately, it's going to work for you incredibly because, again, you're going to come at it from a very distinct perspective and a distinct profile. But I don't know if you agree, Rick, but it's because it's not going to be the obvious angle, you have to just make sure that you're clear on kind of where that's coming from, because the obvious question for me, and again, I'm cheering for you, right? So it's not coming from a skeptic. But my thing is, okay, this guy looks like and again, if I see someone like you, it looks like I would imagine you're someone that had a decorated, kick-ass career in the military. Learned a lot, led a lot of people, did a lot of great things.
Pretty good to me.
So, but what does that have to do with relationships? You know, like, I mean, it's just so Rick, does that make sense in terms of how John should just be thinking about how to position himself?
It does, you know, and I mean, I'm thinking about just what we're doing right now, you know, here on, you know, chatting live. And it looks like we all have, you know, Twitter call signs. And so as you're talking, Ray, I'm just wondering kind of out loud now. I wonder if the messaging you put out into the world is it talking about John, the 23-year service veteran, or John, this kind of heart-centered guy who wants to get out and deliver a bigger message? Because, you know what I mean? Because sometimes it starts. I mean, I'm a big believer, and again, in my late 40s, that social media is a 24/7, 365 way to talk to clients around the world, like nonstop. So, I would be curious to know, like, what does your social side say about you? And I'm no social expert, but I just know that I try to stay congruent. So people now, like, even my call sign, Purpose Hack, they're like, well, what does that mean? And it's like, well, it's this whole, you know, biohacking and life hacking. I just called it purpose hacking. And so it's kind of, there's some congruency, but I would just be kind of curious because it's never easy and there's never like the answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's something that I've again, the last couple of weeks of coming back to the drawing board and really trying to figure out what I'm trying to present to build that tribe. Is been a struggle, you know, and I talk a lot in a lot of my blog posts, and the programs that I've presented going into 2016 are really personality and relationship focused. And you know, yesterday I wrote a blog on personalities of sex and just looking at how the 4 personalities that are within us desire the intimacy in their relationships. And it got like 26 hits that were, you know, it was like, and a couple like counselors on Twitter was like, hey, that's really good. But then I write, you know, something goofy off the wall that, you know, something off the wall about leadership, and it gets, you know, 200 hits in the first hour. And I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. That's not even where I want to go. But it seems to be, that's the social presence that gets the thing. So you might be right. And that's a good insight. You know, right, to say, you know, this aura has been doing leadership and training for a while. That's all I've done for the last 12 years, working for battalion levels or higher and training troops to go and do their job, making sure they're ready to you know, go kick ass and take name in whatever aspect their job calls for. So, yeah, that could be a very big aura presence out there if this, tough
I
military guy.
For people listening to the podcast, we have a gentleman, DG_comeback. I'm sorry, I don't know your real name, but he's got some. He does a lot of work with people in firefighters, policemen, military veterans. He seems like he's got some interesting projects going on to support our men and women supporting us in the front lines here. Yeah, he believes, John, you can capitalize on the military angle in terms of relationships, focusing on themes like brotherhood, loyalty, trust, honor, and it resonates with him as a firefighter. Absolutely, this is some great stuff here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to wrap up the podcast taping. We're not going anywhere as long as Rick, you'll stick around, and John will definitely stick around. But I want to just wrap up for the podcast audience. This is the kind of conversations, the kind of mentors you're going to find here on Big Brother Race podcast. So you can find wealth in your voice. Rick, you've been such a wonderful ray of light. John, is you as well. You've shared so much. And again, just for the podcast audience, we're going to wrap this up. Rick, let people know where they can find you and be part of the Biz Academy online community.
The two places. Go to therickmartinez.com and just put your email in there, and I contact everybody. Or here on the screen, the at Purpose Hack. That's my Twitter handle, and I'm pretty active on Twitter as well. So either place.
Absolutely. And we will. The only downside to the show, Rick, is that your wife didn't join us. But next time, I'm sure she'll try. That's the only thing. But anyway, and then we have to talk about San Antonio, a wonderful city, wonderful military community there, and the Cadillac bar is my hangout there, by the way, Rick. So anyway, we can meet up there at the Cadillac one of these days, and of course your love for burritos, family stuff. There's so much to talk about. You'll be back early and often, Rick. And again, John, thank you for joining, and everyone that's been on the Blab.
Pleasure. Thank you.
If you like what you've been listening, again, we do this Blab every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. And of course, you can catch Race Podcast. We provide mentorship, inspiration, and resources so you can find wealth in your voice. Check us out on iTunes, anywhere you can download a podcast, or just check out BigBrotherRay.com. That's BigBrotherRay.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful day.